morning again, one and all, from deep in the countryside of the Pennsylvania rolling hills. This is SFA Powerhouse reporting from the shotgun position.
This is Crew Chief in the driver's seat.
We are still about halfway to our destination, the Flight 93 Memorial. And it's been in spite of the traffic in Pittsburgh, this has been an absolutely gorgeous drive, as you're about to see as we go over this hill right here. I'm not kidding. The rolling hills of Pennsylvania, they are something of a legend, if you ask me.
Definitely. This being my second time in Pennsylvania, but again, it's been a long time since last time.
Yep. And Crew Chief and I were discussing that this really does remind us of the hill country in Texas.
Yes. So it's like we came home in a way.
It does have that kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of home, let's talk a little bit more about our previous visit to the Flight 93 Memorial in 2014. First off, you and I were still kind of sort of newlyweds at the time. We were celebrating our second anniversary.
Yes, we were actually up there at Shanksville at the Flight 93 Memorial on June 9th, 2014. And I think, in my opinion, many people think that's a very interesting way to celebrate an anniversary. But in my view, what better way to celebrate an anniversary than to honor those who sacrificed so much?
A very reverent way to go thinking about it, baby. Very nice.
Thank you.
As for me, I knew I wanted to get out there. Just having to work with our schedule, with the schedule that we had planned on that day, because we want to make sure we got all the sites in Washington and go to Shanksville as well before we can continue on with the second leg of our anniversary that year.
Yeah.
So we decided to go and use that day and take that drive out from Washington to Shanksville that day. Another gorgeous drive through the country, pretty identical to this.
Pretty close.
Yeah. And as we already discussed in the previous hour, they've made a lot of upgrades since our previous visit. Because when we visited there initially, there was just the Memorial Plaza, the Wall of Names, and the Boulder. But now I understand they have the Tower of Voices, the Learning Center, and the Visitor Center. And a lot more trails too. So there's a lot more to see this time. So, but like I said, going back to our first visit, I mean, you could walk right on in there, and there was 3 or 4 school groups out there at the same time. And from the plaza all the way down to the Wall of Names, it was supremely quiet. You could feel the reverence, the level of reverence at that spot at that time.
Definitely, yes. So again, once again, interestingly is that prior to entering the park, you and I had stopped somewhere to get a snack and got some change. And one of the pieces of change that I got was a quarter with the Texas on it. And when we got there, they have little areas walking towards the walls where people can leave little things from memory, like in memory of.
Little tokens of tribute.
There it is. So we left that quarter with Texas facing up as our little tribute to that.
Yeah.
For that.
Even though it's happening in Pennsylvania, the impact is felt all around the world, especially in Texas.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
all around the country.
Yeah. Not just the country, too. People in the world were shocked at it, too.
Yes.
But I'll tell you what, getting all that video and photography from our first visit in that beautiful countryside, I mean, there were times where I had to calm down because I was still trying to control my emotions because I was getting all teary-eyed that a tragic event happened in such a beautiful place.
Unfortunately, yes, it did. And it was not expected. No one expected it. No one.
While we're still navigating through these small towns, I guess we can talk specifically now about our specific memories of the very tragic day, since we were both alive and lived through not only an amazing childhood, but also saw our amazing childhood, then 9/11 happened, and go from there. Want me to go ahead and start?
Let's go.
All right. We'll hang a ride in about 2 miles.
Okay.
For me, I was going to a class and I was sitting down, and ironically enough, it was a history class. Then the teacher just barges in and says, "Turn on the TV, they just bombed the World Trade Center." I was like, "What?" And as soon as I turned on the TV, we saw the smoking first tower of the Trade Center. Then, sure enough, 5 minutes later, the second plane went into the second tower. My heart sank to the bottom of the earth, and I really couldn't speak. It was that scary, and it was that terrifying. I mean, I could not focus at all the rest of the day. Now, we still had school continuing for the rest of the day, but at the time, nobody was really learning. Okay, I can tell you right now, nobody was really learning. I know I wasn't. And, you know, bless the teachers for doing all they could to try to keep us calm and trying to keep us, you know, not too emotional. And it was a really, really, really hard day. And let me put it this way: no extracurricular activity was really going to happen that afternoon because the kids were just too scared and too unfocused to worry about anything else but their own personal safety, including me. I mean, and then I heard about the Pentagon, and then I'll be honest with you, I didn't really hear about Flight 93 until the very last class of that day. And wow, it's just, all of a sudden I felt like my perfect childhood was just obliterated to oblivion. I mean, it was just straight up obliterated. I mean, just talking about it right now, I'm getting choked up. Crew Chief?
Well, at the time, on September 11th, 2001, prior to the events, it was just a normal class day for me. I'd gone to my English class, and interestingly enough, I wrote a paper detailing about having to move out of my dorm room 5 days after, and I titled it "Expecting the Worst," and it was dated around this time in 2001. Kind of interesting. But anyway, I just finished on the day of September 11th. I just finished my my freshman English class, and so I had about a while before my next class. So I went to the student center to check email and things like that. And while I was sitting there checking email, I overheard someone saying something about the World Trade Center, and I'm thinking in my mind, like, World Trade Center? What are you talking about? I think, Mom, what are you talking about? I thought maybe a big business deal had happened or something. I'm not sure. So I went on, but then TVs were in the student center and all around, and the events had happened. The two planes had already gone into the World Trade Center. I never saw them go into the World Trade Center. I never saw them. But I did keep my eye on one of the TVs at one time later on in that day, where I actually saw the second, both towers went down, but I was actually watching the second. I actually watched the second tower went down, and it was very, very unreal, and just that's basically. I mean, everything changed that day. Everything. And that paper that I wrote called "Expecting the Worst." It was about just moving out of a dorm room. It was basically nothing compared to the horrors that day. And it will always. Everyone knows it. Everyone who was around that day knows exactly where they were, and it's even today. Even here, over 20 years later,
almost 24 years to date.
I still, put my mindset back into that. I will say, a few years later, after graduating college and things like that, one of the places I worked at handed out these American flag cross pins, and so what I did is I put it on my lanyard that I keep my ID on. So whenever I'm wearing my lanyard, the cross is right there on my lanyard. It sort of helps remind me of that day.
Yeah.
Again, it was handed out on September 11th, like again, years later, and I always keep it on my lanyard and make sure that the cross is facing where it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Great way to honor that.
Yeah.
It really is a great way to honor that. So, needless to say, the tragic events of 9/11 really had a profound impact on all of us. And anyone who's lived it knows exactly what happened, where, and how. All right, now we're going to dive in. We're going to dive a lot more into the specific history of the events that happened on September 11, 2001. This is provided by History.com. And during our discussion, this is quite a bit of history. So there'll be times where I say facts. That means I'm going back to the facts based on from History.com. And anytime I say opinion, that means I'm giving my opinion, and I'm also opening up the floor to crew chief as well. All right? So here's some facts. On September 11, 2001, terrorists linked to the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda, founded by Osama bin Laden, hijacked 4 commercial passenger airplanes and carried out suicide attacks against targets in the United States. 2 of the planes were flown into the World Trade Center in New York City. Within a few hours, both of the Twin Towers collapsed into rubble, demolishing a large section of lower Manhattan. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. The passengers and crew of the 4th plane fought back, and the plane was downed in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Opinion. A lot of this stuff may be upsetting, and it may be infuriating, but remember, we have to stick to the facts here.
Yes.
Because if you don't remember the facts, you're only doomed to repeat it.
Basically.
Who said that? Was that Churchill?
I cannot say for sure, but I know someone did say that.
Okay, well, we're going to go across here and we're going to hang a left.
All right.
Okay. All right, back to the facts. Almost 3,000 people were killed in the 9/11 terrorist attacks, including the 19 Al-Qaeda terrorists. The shocking events of September 11th were televised globally and left much of the world reeling in horror. The administration of President George W. Bush responded by declaring a war on terrorism, including the creation of the Department of Homeland Security and the invasion of Afghanistan. On September 11, 2001, at 8:45 a.m., on a clear Tuesday morning, an American Airlines Boeing 767, loaded with 20,000 gallons of jet fuel, crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. The impact left a gaping, burning hole near the 93rd and 99th floors of the 110-story skyscraper, instantly killing hundreds of people and trapping hundreds more on higher floors. As the evacuation of the tower and its twin got underway, television cameras broadcasted live images of what initially appeared to be a freak accident. Then, 18 minutes after the first plane hit, a second Boeing 767, United Airlines Flight 175, appeared in the sky, sharply turning towards the World Trade Center and sliced into the South Tower between the 77th and 85th floors. The collision caused a massive explosion that showered burning debris over surrounding buildings and onto the streets below. It immediately became clear that America was under attack. The hijackers were Islamic terrorists from Saudi Arabia and several other Arab nations, reportedly financed by the Al-Qaeda terrorist organization of Saudi fugitive Osama bin Laden. They were allegedly acting in retaliation for America's support of Israel, its involvement in the Persian Gulf War, and its continued military presence in the Middle East. Some of the terrorists had lived in the United States for more than a year and had taken flying lessons at American commercial flight schools. Others had slipped into the country in the months before September 11th and acted as the muscle in the operation. The 19 terrorists smuggled box cutters and knives through security at 3 East Coast airports: Logan International in Boston, Dulles International in Washington, D.C., and Newark International in New Jersey, and boarded 4 early morning flights bound for California, chosen because the planes were loaded with fuel for the long transcontinental journey. Soon after takeoff, the terrorists commandeered the 4 planes and took the controls, transforming ordinary passenger jets into guided missiles. As millions watched the events unfolding in New York, American Airlines Flight 77 circled over downtown Washington, D.C., before crashing into the west side of the Pentagon military headquarters at 9:45 a.m. Jet fuel from the Boeing 757 caused a devastating inferno that led to the structural collapse of a portion of the giant concrete building, which is the headquarters for the U.S. Department of Defense. All told, 125 military personnel and civilians were killed in the Pentagon, along with all 64 people aboard the airliner. Less than 15 minutes after the terrorists struck the nerve center of the U.S. military, the horror in New York took a catastrophic turn when the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed in a massive cloud of dust and smoke. The structural steel of the skyscraper, built to withstand winds in excess to 200 miles per hour and a large conventional fire, could not withstand the tremendous heat generated by the burning jet fuel. At 10:30 a.m., the north building of the Twin Towers collapsed. Only 18 people in the World Trade Center towers at the time of the collapse survived. Most were with a group of New York firefighters in the North Tower's stairwell B, which remained intact. One woman survived after the stairs she was rushing down disintegrated around her. Almost 10,000 others were treated for injuries, many severe. Meanwhile, a fourth California-bound plane, United Flight 93, was hijacked about 40 minutes after leaving Newark in New Jersey. Because the plane had been delayed in taking off, passengers on board learned of events in New York and Washington via cell phone and airphone calls to the ground. Knowing that the aircraft was not returning to an airport as the hijackers claimed, a group of passengers and flight attendants planned an insurrection. One of the passengers, Thomas Burnett Jr., told his wife over the phone that, quote, "I know we're all going to die. There's 3 of us who are going to do something about it. I love you, honey," unquote. Another passenger, Todd Beamer, was heard saying, quote, "Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready? Let's roll," end quote, over one line. Sandy Bradshaw, a flight attendant, called her husband and explained that she had slipped into a galley and was filling pitchers with boiling water. Her last words to him were, quote, "Everyone's running to first class. I've got to go. Bye," end quote. Opinion. Here's my opinion.
Okay.
Those quotes right there, extremely powerful.
Definitely. If it weren't for those phone calls, we wouldn't have known that the passengers planned to try to retake the plane.
Exactly. So that's how we knew, and that's how we knew that the passengers revolted, and they were able to, they were hoping to take over and claim their lives, but it was already in too steep of a dive for it to happen.
And I believe one of the passengers, or a couple of the passengers, one was a pilot who flew planes before, smaller planes, and then another one apparently used to work in air traffic control, who could help guide this pilot that they were supposedly going to try to get to the cockpit to retake the plane.
Yeah. And bear in mind, we initially caught wind of that, well, at least I caught wind of that whenever I saw the Paul Greengrass film, United 93, which he strove to make that as painfully accurate as possible with the information they had.
Right.
So if that was painfully accurate, then, and I believe it was, that thing everybody said about a pilot and a former air traffic controller being on the plane at the time, I'm pretty sure that was accurate too. Of course, we can get reaffirmation of that as we get to the memorial.
Right.
And by the way, yes, the United 93 film by Paul Greengrass is probably one of the, if not the greatest film about 9/11 ever, in my opinion.
Yes, it's very powerful.
Yeah. But I'm going to tell you right now, that film is not for the faint of heart. So you better make yourself very, very ready. Because when I saw the United 93 film in theaters, I wasn't ready. I did all the research I could, and I still wasn't ready. Okay? That's the only time I've ever walked out of the theater crying like a baby. Hey, I'm fessing up to that.
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. It's a hard watch, but a very necessary watch.
Definitely, because you need no. Just like we should never forget Pearl Harbor when December 7th, 1941. We should never forget that day as well. But we should never forget September 11th, 2001, because they're part of our history, and if we keep remembering, it's our willingness to stay strong in the faces of evil.
Yeah. All right, back to the facts. The passengers fought the 4 hijackers and are suspected to have attacked the cockpit with a fire extinguisher. The plane then flipped over and sped towards the ground at upwards of 500 miles per hour, crashing in a rural field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania at 10:10 a.m. All 44 people aboard were killed. Its intended target is not known, but theories include the White House, the U.S. Capitol, the Camp David presidential retreat in Maryland, or one of several nuclear power plants along the eastern seaboard. A total of 2,996 people were killed in the 9/11 attacks, including the 19 terrorist hijackers aboard the 4 airplanes. Citizens of 78 countries died in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. At the World Trade Center, 2,763 died after the 2 planes slammed into the Twin Towers. That figure includes 343 firefighters and paramedics, 23 New York City police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers who were struggling to complete an evacuation of the buildings and save the office workers trapped on higher floors. At the Pentagon, 189 people were killed, including 64 on American Airlines Flight 77, the airliner that struck the building. On Flight 93, 44 people died when the plane crash landed in Pennsylvania. At 7 p.m., President George W. Bush, who was in Florida at the time of the attacks and had spent the day being shuttled around the country because of security concerns, returned to the White House. At 9 p.m., he delivered a televised address from the Oval Office, declaring, quote, "Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve." End quote. In a reference to the eventual U.S. military response, he declared, quote, "We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them." End quote. Operation Enduring Freedom, the American-led international effort to oust the Taliban regime in Afghanistan and destroy Osama bin Laden's terrorist network based there, began on October 7th. Within 2 months, U.S. forces had effectively removed the Taliban from operational power, but the war continued. As U.S. and coalition forces attempted to defeat a Taliban insurgency campaign based in neighboring Pakistan. Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the September 11th attacks, remained at large until May 2nd, 2011, when he was finally tracked down and killed by U.S. forces at a hideout in Abbottabad, Pakistan. In June 2011, then President Barack Obama announced the beginning of large-scale troop withdrawals from Afghanistan. It took until August 2021 for all U.S. forces to withdraw. In the wake of security fears raised by 9/11 and the mailing of letters containing anthrax that killed 2 and infected 17, the Homeland Security Act of 2002 created the Department of Homeland Security. It was signed into law by President George W. Bush on November 25th, 2002. Today, the Department of Homeland Security is a cabinet responsible for preventing terror attacks, border security, immigrations and customs, and disaster relief and prevention. The act was followed 2 days later by the formation of the National Commission on Terrorist Attacks upon the United States. The bipartisan 9/11 Commission, as it became known, was charged with investigating the events that led up to September 11th. The 9/11 Commission report was released on July 22, 2004. It named Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the accused mastermind behind 9/11, as the principal architect of the 9/11 attacks. Mohammed led propaganda operations for Al-Qaeda from 1999 to 2001. He was captured on March 1st, 2003 by the CIA and Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence and interrogated before being imprisoned at Guantanamo Bay detention camp with 4 other accused terrorists charged with 9/11 related war crimes. The use of torture, including waterboarding, during Mohammed's interrogation had received international attention. In August 2019, a U.S. military court judge in Guantanamo Bay set a trial date for Mohammed and the 4 other men charged with plotting the terrorist attacks to begin in 2021. It was later postponed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The 9/11 attacks had an immediate negative effect on the U.S. economy. Many Wall Street institutions, including the New York Stock Exchange, were evacuated during the attacks. On the first day of trading after the attacks, the market fell 7.1%, or 684 points. New York City's economy alone lost 143,000 jobs a month and $2.8 billion in wages in the first 3 months. The heaviest losses were in finance and air transportation, which accounted for 60% of lost jobs. The estimated cost of the World Trade Center damage is $60 billion. The cost to clean the debris at Ground Zero was $750 million. Opinion. Any thoughts on what we got so far? And that was a lot. I know that was a lot. I mean, they caught the mastermind. And yes, I remember stories about that interrogation. Not a good look, but what can we do?
My question is, why didn't they start the trial dates for these terrorists sooner rather than later?
I'm thinking that myself. It should have been over and done already, but I don't know. I don't want to get too much into politics right now because I just
right.
don't want to.
Are these terrorists still at Guantanamo Bay?
As far as I know, I haven't heard anything different.
Okay. Again, it is a lot of information. They had to. President 41, or 43, sorry.
That's President Bush.
Right. He was right. These terrorists can, shake down our buildings, but they can't shake down our foundation of our country. It's impossible.
Yeah, the true Americans will never let this go,
No.
and they'll make sure that they'll do everything they can to make sure this doesn't happen.
We can rebuild buildings.
Yeah.
But
unfortunately, the almost 3,000 people lost. I mean, that's extremely tragic.
Exactly. It is.
It was a really, really sad day. And anytime I meet a family member, immediate family member, or anyone like that was impacted by this, I can't help but pray for them and feel for them. I'm like, I cannot even begin to imagine the loss they endured.
Yes. Exactly. You can't replace human life.
Our hearts and prayers goes out to all of y'all,
Definitely.
all of your families and friends who had family members and friends that were killed on this tragic day of September 11th. Our hearts and prayers goes out to y'all. God bless y'all.
Definitely.
And know that even here in Texas, we pray for y'all every day.
Yes. Never forget.
Never forget. 24 years later, we haven't forgotten.
Nope. Never will.
Back to the facts. Thousands of first responders and people working and living in lower Manhattan near Ground Zero were exposed to toxic fumes and particles emanating from the towers as they burned and fell. By 2018, 10,000 people were diagnosed with 9/11 related cancer. From 2001 to 2004, over $7 billion in compensation was given to families of 9/11 victims and 2,680 people injured in the attacks. Funding was renewed on January 2, 2011, when President Barack Obama signed the James Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act into law. Named for James Zadroga, a New York police officer who died of respiratory disease he contracted after rescuing people from the rubble at Ground Zero. The law continued health monitoring and compensation for 9/11 first responders and survivors. In 2015, funding for the treatment of 9/11 related illness was renewed for 5 or more years at a total of $7.4 billion. The Victim Compensation Fund was set to stop accepting claims in December 2020. On July 2019, then President Trump signed a law authorizing support for the September 11th Victim Compensation Fund through 2092.
Wow.
Previously, administrators had cut benefits by up to 70% as the $7.4 billion fund depleted. Vocal lobbyists for the fund included Jon Stewart, 9/11 first responder John Field, and retired New York Police Department detective and 9/11 responder Luis Alvarez, who died from cancer 18 days after testifying before Congress. In the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, a cavalry pear tree emerged from the rubble. It now stands at ground zero as a symbol of hope. Now that opinion, I did not know that.
I did not know that either.
The 9/11 Memorial and Statue of Liberty. We got to see Statue of Liberty.
Definitely.
All
So
right.
that's if we ever go to New York City, that's the main reason. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, if we do get an opportunity to go to Manhattan and see the 9/11 Memorial and the Statue of Liberty, of course we'll do that. It's not on our radar yet, but if it is, we'll for sure get all the imagery we can.
Definitely. Yes.
All right, so we'll see what happens. All right, but let's continue. Back to the facts. On December 18, 2001, Congress approved naming September 11th Patriot Day to commemorate the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. In 2009, Congress named September 11th a National Day of Service and Remembrance. The first memorials to September 11th came in the immediate wake of the attacks, with candlelight vigils and flower tributes at U.S. embassies around the world. In Great Britain, Queen Elizabeth sang the American national anthem during the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. Rio de Janeiro put up billboards showing the city's Christ the Redeemer statue embracing the New York skyline. Opinion. Like I said, 9/11 had a significant impact all over the world.
Definitely.
Very nice of the Queen to sing the Star Spangled Banner there.
Well, I think that was very fitting of Her Majesty to do that, because I mean, one of her allies was affected deeply, and what better way than to sing her allies' national anthem? And the same thing would happen again if something had happened in reverse. If something had happened in Great Britain, the president would sing "God Save the Queen," or
something along those lines.
Or "My Country, 'Tis of Thee."
You know, we would if Lord forbid something happened over in the UK, yeah, it would be there would be a definite outpouring of love from a lot of Americans out here.
Definitely.
So
Yes.
make no mistake, UK, we're here with y'all too, okay?
Yes. We may have won our independence from you, but we are still your allies.
Amen. All right. So, I guess we're saying to the world, thank you for showing love on one of our darkest days. We appreciate that and we love y'all. All right, back to the facts. For the first anniversary of the attacks in New York City in 2002, 2 bright columns of light were shot up into the sky from where the Twin Towers once stood. The Tribute in Light then became an annual installation run by the Municipal Art Society of New York. On clear nights, the beams are visible from over 60 miles away. A World Trade Center site memorial competition was held to select an appropriate permanent memorial to the victims of 9/11. The winning design by Michael Arad, reflecting absence, now sits outside the museum in an 8-acre park. It consists of 2 reflecting pools with waterfalls rushing down where the Twin Towers once rose into the sky. The names of all 2,983 victims are engraved on the 152 bronze panels surrounding the pools, arranged by where individuals were on the day of the attacks, so co-workers and people on the same flight are memorialized together. The site was opened to the public on September 11th, 2011, to commemorate the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. The National September 11th Memorial and Museum followed, opened on the original World Trade Center site in May 2014. The Freedom Tower, also on the original World Trade Center site, opened in November 2014. And that's all the history from History.com. Now we get back to our opinion. Man, that was a lot, but
Yes, it was.
so much happened on that day. It was outrageous.
It was. Again, once again, no words I can say to describe what happened. All I know is that America is coming out stronger than ever before. It's just like when Pearl Harbor happened. We came out stronger than ever before, and that's pretty much.
Yeah, it was.
I want to say.
Absolutely. Right when that happened, there was a very big renewed sense of patriotism, love for country, as well as anger to our enemies, because we were reminded that because America treasures freedom so much, and the freedom to see beautiful sights like what we see right here. I mean, gorgeous sight. You couldn't ask for a more gorgeous sight of the rolling hills right here. I mean, wow. And like I said, that renewed sense of love of country, as well as a renewed sense of anger towards our enemies, and reminded that America will always have enemies because we love our freedom so much.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely felt proud to be where you are and to be an American like that.
And sometimes I think our enemies are a little bit envious of what we have, because they probably live in countries where they don't have too many freedoms to be who they want to be, basically.
Yeah, and then and like I said, going back to the renewed sense of patriotism and patriotism for America and love of country, and to the anger of our enemies, the music industry certainly made its impact after 9/11. For example, the two biggest hits that came out in response to 9/11 were country songs. The more gentle one, the gentle, sad one by Alan Jackson, "Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning?" Very, very gentle and very gut-wrenching, as country music can only deliver.
Yeah.
And we love Alan Jackson. We haven't seen him live, and I don't think we will, because he's about to retire.
Shame. But anyway,
Yeah. So yeah, if you want a tearjerker country song that was in response to 9/11, that's your way to go. But the one that really exemplified American anger towards their enemies was Toby Keith's "Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue." I mean, you talk about total badassery right there.
yes.
And God rest his soul. Toby Keith passed away a couple of years ago. God rest his soul. I mean, you cannot find a more outspoken patriot for America than Toby Keith was.
I agree. He is definitely missed. I think he passed away due to stomach cancer, I believe.
Yeah.
But still, it was kind of shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very sad too. I would have loved to see him in concert too. I wish I did, but
It is what it is.
yeah. And in the meantime, there's also a lot of great classic tunes that also resurged a lot in the wake of 9/11. One of them out there was Aaron Tippin's "Where the Stars and Stripes and the Eagle Fly." Great classic tune.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Hank Williams Jr.'s "America Will Survive."
Yep.
Kind of throwback to "Country Boy Can't Survive." Just tweaked it a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't think I've heard that one. Maybe we need to revisit that one day.
Yeah.
Of course, one of the most well-known American anthems, Lee Greenwood's "God Bless the USA," definitely resurged after that.
If there was ever had a second national anthem, that would be it.
Probably
in my
so.
opinion, of course.
Yeah, this is all our opinion. We're just commenting here.
Yes.
And since Crew Chief and Powerhouse have extensive musical backgrounds, I believe we can comment on music a bit.
A little bit. I think you Powerhouse have more to say, but that's just my opinion.
Right. And we haven't seen any one of these groups perform ever. Aaron Tippin never saw him. Hank Jr. never saw him. Lee Greenwood never saw him. But we did see Brooks and Dunn.
Yep.
And they ended their show with "Only in America," another great all-American tune.
Definitely.
Yeah, that show back in the Woodlands last year was fantastic.
Definitely.
Yeah,
See.
so
Look at the map.
we still go straight for a bit.
All right.
Yeah, and then over the last year, bear in mind, this is recorded in June 2025. Over the last year, American patriotism has not dwindled. Love for country and the music industry has not dwindled. A lot of great ones are still out there and still being delivered. One of them that I still enjoy is by Tom MacDonald and Nova Rockefeller, Goodbye Joe.
Yeah.
You know, it really exemplified the love for country, and they want to go back to the old days. And then another one very recently by rocker Drew Jacobs, along with Marine rapper and D-Cure, God's Ground. A great heavy jam.
Yes.
And then, and of course, God Bless USA has been, by Liam Goodwood, has been covered by many groups and many people, including the a cappella group Home Free.
Oh, yes.
I mean, we saw Home Free at the Grand Ole Opry, and their harmony is really, really tight. They have really great ears. Fantastic musicians. Including one of them from our immediate area. The bass voice, Tim Faust, is from the Southeast Texas area. Neyland, specifically.
I believe so.
So, yeah. And also, during the COVID pandemic, Lee Greenwood, Home Free, and the U.S. Army Singers also covered God Bless the USA.
Yep. I remember that. That was a very potent one.
Yeah, so many voices all at once. Just a big, epic, beautiful sound. I cried on that one.
Who didn't?
Yeah. And then, as we said, rocker Drew Jacobs also covered it with Lee Greenwood into an epic, heavy jam. Just give it a big, huge rock jam to it. I mean, it's really awesome.
Yep.
And as talking as a musician, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you what, America has always delivered some of the greatest music of all time. And here we are at SFA Powerhouse trying to deliver you the best commentary and best sights right here. You see the windmills up there at the very top of that ridge.
Yep.
Yeah. But meantime, that's really all the topics that we had on this podcast. That's it, and we're 15 minutes away from the memorial. So I need to rest my voice and hydrate before we get to the memorial. So we appreciate you riding along with us, and we hope you got something useful out of this podcast, whether it's a recount of history or memories, or hopefully a renewed sense of patriotism and love for your country. I really hope you have.
Once again, hope you've enjoyed the drive. A lot of hills throughout this state or Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Those who drive these roads, I do not know how y'all do it, but I'm glad y'all do. Y'all are the experts. So anyone who from the Pennsylvania area, around this area, Pittsburgh, how y'all put up with the traffic, how you put up with those steep grades of the hills, it's beyond me. So hope you're enjoying the ride.
Yeah. And like I said, we're coming from Southeast Texas, where it's pretty much mostly flat land here. So that's what we're kind of used to, but that's all right. Hey, nice little driving experience for both of us.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you very much for riding along. This is SFA Powerhouse wishing you Godspeed. God bless you. God bless the United States of America, and enjoy the ride.
This is Crew Chief signing off, wishing you many blessings and many more to come. Thank you.